Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to tell you about a new Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition page 4 DMG change that I've made recently that has changed our Dungeons and Dragons, Perkinian Dungeons and Dragons, active Dungeons and Dragons very significantly, right? So, and I just wanted to kind of give you the idea I had, tell you how it's going, and propose it for use at your table. Although I will say this is early on at use at my table. So I'm running this with my Smoke Glass Wolves crew, and we have 4 players there. And so basically, I love Dungeons and Dragons, and current 2014 to now, Dungeons and Dragons is primarily what's at our table, and we have had some players bringing in some material from older tabletop role-playing game books, older Dungeons and Dragons, like for instance 1974 to 1986 D&D. We had a little bit of 1999 1999 to 2008 D&D. Had some books coming in and getting mixed into the mix now that it's all just Dungeons and Dragons. But one of the things that I stay on Dungeons and Dragons for a whole lot of reasons. But there are tabletop role-playing games that have absolutely brilliant ideas in them that I just fall in love with and would really love to run more. But one of the reasons why I just stay on Dungeons and Dragons is every time I'm on some kind of indie game, there's always one to half of the group is like, we get you love this, but we don't. We want to just get back to playing D&D. And it's one of the reasons why I make Dungeons and Dragons active my main goal, and the reason why is it just wins players over in more ways. It's hard to even count, right? Like, if you're playing active regular Dungeons and Dragons, people can go to the FLGS and pick stuff off the shelf, right? And they know that they have options in 35 different books. It's incredible, right? Whereas one of my favorite tabletop role-playing games, Index Card RPG, I absolutely love it, but it can't win players the way active Dungeons and Dragons does, right? There's always like one curmudgeon at the table, or even 2 who are just like, we're tolerating this for the sake of you, but we don't really like it, right? So, and now that I'm really full on in active D&D, it's better. It's essentially an expectation. And honestly, I think that what's been happening at my game has been happening in the industry. If you look around, like 2021, 2022 was the years that literally the entire indie tabletop role-playing game industry just gave up and was like, everything's going to be converted to Perkinian Dungeons and Dragons. And that's been happening. Like Monty Cook Games and Cobble Press, and just like you could just tick them off. It's incredible. Like, it's just been happening for a while, right? So Index Card RPG has this thing that I absolutely love. The best thing in that game that I really wanted to bring to Dungeons and Dragons, and I found a rules is written way to do it, right? That's just simply doing it through the narrative, right? Because I feel like weak dungeon masters are like, it was a different rule. Or if you ever hear the word homebrew, you're dealing with a bad dungeon master, period. Like, there's no need to homebrew anything. The game literally says the rules aren't in charge, you're in charge. So if you're changing the rules of Dungeons and Dragons, you're not homebrewing anything, you're running Dungeons and Dragons. It is an expectation that you're gonna turn the dials, right? So, it's like a soundboard. Like, nobody buys a soundboard and never moves a knob. It, like, just turns it on and off, right? You're going to configure it for yourself. That's not homebrewing it. It's just using it, okay? So, and I think you should do that. You should make the reasons that major rules changes happen narrative. They should make sense in the story, okay? All right, so here's how so the best thing I love about Index Card RPG is the deadliness. You have 1 heart, which is 10 HP. If you are super lucky and super durable and super tough, you have 20 HP, right? And generally, with very few exceptions, your player characters have 10 HP through the entire game, right? Maybe you get to 20 HP. And it just gives a level of raw terror, right, in the game that, hey, my character could die, everything I do matters, my decisions matter, that you just don't get in Perkinian Dungeons and Dragons right now, right? So I wanted this, right? So I tried this with my Smoked Glass Wolves, and 3 out of 4 love it. One of them hates it, and hates it so much I think they may quit, right? So just giving you a heads up. But the other 3 really like how fast combat is going with this change. So thanks for your patience for the build-up. Here's the change, okay? Basically, the Moon's Wrath, okay? So basically, they're out in the glades, and their player character, and one of the player characters is on watch, and I said a blue ring circles the moon, right? And it shines brighter and brighter, and to the point where you're having a hard time looking at it. Do you want to wake up your fellow player characters? They all get up, they look at it too, and there's like this crackle and a crack like ice, right? And the Moon's Wrath falls upon their world. Now, what happened at that moment? So basically, the only way they even know this is called the Moon's Wrath is when they go into the city, into the next closest like metropolis. There's an old man, and they're all like, "What happened?" You know, and the player characters are like, "What happened?" And they're discussing it, and like merchants are discussing it, and everybody's seen it. Like when this ring that went around the moon. There's like this loud cracking noise. It sounded like ice cracking. And then the moon was slightly bluer after that. That's it. That's okay. That's the only change, right? That they notice, right? And this old man who's disheveled and he's essentially homeless, he says, "The Moon's Wrath." And this silence comes across the entire square when he says it, right? And the players just kind of like... And then he literally just scrabbles off and goes around a corner, right? So what is the Moon's Wrath? Well, there is a celestial occurrence, and it has changed every living creature that was under that moon, right? And, and so that means it's going to different parts of the world as it turns, so some areas may not be affected, but within 1 month, the entire planet, the entire world is covered under the Moon's Wrath. So what is the Moon's Wrath? It's this simple. Your hit points, your total hit points on your D&D active character sheet, Perkinian Dungeons & Dragons character sheet, your total is equal to your Constitution score. Not your plus, right? So if you have an 18 Constitution, you have 18 hit points. Not plus 4. Now you still get your plus 4, so you get your plus 4 on anything that would take... I don't think any skills use a con advantage. I think there might be one that just happened in Spelljammer, but very few skills actually use the plus 4. So if you have a 16 con, you have a plus 3. Not the plus, your score, your Constitution score is your hit points, and every single thing in Dungeons and Dragons, its hit points is now equal to its Constitution points. End of sentence. Period. Right? So you don't have to change anything. Nothing gets changed, right? Except this one thing. So all the rules of Dungeons & Dragons work perfectly well, right? But everything changes from the perspective of urgency. You are always 1 or 2 attacks from death. Now, this changes a lot. That means, yes, you caught it, right? An ancient gold dragon has 28 hit points. Yeah. Like that's a lot, right? But it still has all its legendary actions. It still has claw, bite, tack, breath weapon, blah, forward, right? And everything becomes outrageously more dangerous, right? And characters are dropping and leaning on the death save constantly. And suddenly everybody's concerned where, the potion of healing is. That ancient gold dragon will get a lot more respect, right? And so it's so simple, but it really has dramatically changed the deadliness at my table, and I really like it. I love it. I will let you know if that one player drops out, because one player is torqued, does not like it. All right, the other 3 actually really like the tension, and they love combats are half the length, right? Some combats don't even happen because people are like, "Oh, I got 6 hit points," so, and if they've already been in a fight that day. right? So it really dramatically changes the game. It is super simple. It has a narrative reason why it's happening, and you have to change anything in any of the books. It just makes everything more deadly. And if you care about this, right, if your players are like, oh my gosh, I hate this, right, and they freak out and they absolutely hate it, you can allow them to quest to finish it, right? There you go. So it's working pretty well. I really love it. It's one of my favorite things being brought directly over from Index Card RPG, directly into Perkinian Dungeons & Dragons, into active Dungeons & Dragons, into regular Dungeons & Dragons. And I am super hyped about it. I really, really like it a lot. So I'm highly suggesting you try this. It is a little bit risky because I can't report to you how it's going overall. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.